Poker is pressure. And the pressure of the National Heads Up Poker Championship now focuses on the final 16. Phil Hellmuth rolls along with Huck Seed in fast pursuit.
I'm not going to try to get involved in, his game, which is all that nonsense.
That might not be the best way to play me. And they call me the Magician.
Antonio Esfandiari is on fire as he next plays cash game guru Ted Forrest.
Howard and Daniel and now me, that's murderer's row right there.
That was a crazy game of poker. Crazy game of poker. I lost it all. But someday I'll be back again in the high. Never to fall, never to fall.
Welcome to the National Heads Up Poker Championship, presented by Michelob Amber Bach at the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino, downtown Las Vegas. Our original field of 64 has been cut to 16, and as the field has dwindled, the pressure to win has certainly increased. There's Carlos Mortensen, the 2001 world champion. And that's TJ Cloutier, a tournament specialist who's won more tournaments than any other player. And there's Chris Jesus Ferguson. He beat Cloutier heads up to win the 2000 World Series. Matt Vasgersian here alongside Gabe Kaplan, and at our featured table, a classic poker matchup. Syracuse, New York native Ted Forrest, once nicknamed the businessman of poker because he backed so many people. And today he looks across at 25-year-old Antonio Esfandiari, better known as the Magician.
Incidentally, Matt, both these players are going to be auditioning for that new movie, The Matrix Flops a Flush.
Players in this round of 16 all start with 80,000 in chips. Ted Forrest looking in on an ace-3. He calls, and Antonio checks with a suited deuce tray. Flop left to right is 10 tray 8.
They both made a pair of threes here, which is pretty good in heads up. Of course, Ted has a much better kicker.
Antonio bets 900, and Ted calls. Turn card. It's the other three, the three of spades.
That is terrible for Antonio. The last three has come out there, made them both 3 threes, but Ted Forrest has the ace kicker. Antonio could lose a lot of money with this hand.
You can see the percentages there not adding up to 100. There's a 13% chance of a split pot. That would happen if a 10 or 8 came up, and Ted Forrest calls Antonio's bet, and the river card's a king of clubs.
Right now, Matt, it's just a question of how much Antonio is going to lose in this hand. He's positive he has the best hand, and he's trying to extract as much money from Ted as possible. He doesn't want Ted to go out. He thinks Ted probably has a 10.
And Antonio bets 8,500.
Now, the question is, how much is Ted Forrest going to raise? We know he's going to raise.
Raise.
Ted announces a raise, and now that's got to put Antonio totally off the scent.
Well, Antonio's confused, but in Antonio's mind now, I think he's going over the possibility of maybe Ted is bluffing.
12,000 more.
Up to just under 21,000 now.
Antonio is saying, what does this man have? Does he have a busted draw? Has he made kings and tens? Could he possibly have a 3 also? Was he slow playing a full house?
Nine jack.
He's hoping it's the busted straight.
And he calls. Well, we know exactly how much money he's going to lose on this hand now.
25,000, and he's fortunate, Matt. He could have lost more.
So the man who once bet that he could walk from L.A. to Vegas takes down a nice early pot, a big win for Ted Forrest. The game is No Limit Texas Hold'em. There are 2 forced bets called blinds, which are used to initiate action. Each player receives 2 individual cards face down and eventually 5 community cards face up. There are 4 betting rounds in which players may bet part or all of their chips. The best 5-card poker hand wins the pot. All right, so the round of 16 is underway. And, Gabe, how do you size up our feature table, this match between Ted Forrest and Antonio Esfandiari?
Well, Antonio, in beating two of the heavyweights in poker, Daniel Negreanu and Howard Lederer, has established a mystique. He's the magician. He's got a physical presence. Plus, he's got the best-looking girlfriends. But one guy who's not going to be intimidated, one guy who is a complete study in poker concentration, is Ted Forrest. Ted is not going to be affected at all by any of this.
Intimidation may, in fact, come into play a little later on in the round in a match between Huck Seed and the always entertaining Phil Hellmuth.
Now, here's an interesting dynamic. Huck and Phil used to be the best of friends. They're not anymore. Now, if you remember in his two previous matches, when things didn't go Phil's way, he got a little nasty. I don't think he's going to get nasty against Huck. These guys have too much history together. It's going to be interesting to see.
Well, one thing we've certainly learned regarding this heads-up format, and it's really applied the deeper we get into the tournament, is that there's been a surprise almost around every corner. Carlos Mortensen knows all about surprising people. He traveled from Madrid, Spain to win the 2001 World Series main event title. He's up against the CEO of the World Poker Tour, Lyle Berman. That's John Hennigan, the professional pool player turned poker pro. He's facing off against tournament specialist TJ Cloutier, who defeated stud specialist Nick Frangus in the first round and the mad genius of poker Mike Caro in the second. And there's Chris Ferguson. After knocking out Cindy Violette, he got past one of the tournament's wildest players, Gus Hansen. Today he goes head-to-head with the only female to make the round of 16, Mimi Tran. We'll follow these matches throughout the day, but now back to our featured table.
That's a lot of outs.
Antonio with a suited 9-6. And he calls. Suited 6-4 for Ted. He checks. Flop is 5-4 deuce.
Ted Forrest has made a pair of fours, but they both have an inside straight draw.
And both players quickly check into the turn, which comes up king of spades.
Check.
Ted quickly checks, and Antonio bets out 1,200.
He's picked up a flush draw, and he still has the inside straight draw. Ted has the pair and the inside straight draw. He calls.
And the river, 3 of hearts. Both players make the straight.
There's going to be some action here. Ted's going to bet here. He hopes that Antonio has an ace and has made a lower straight.
Ted bets 2,100.
But Antonio has the same straight.
How much is it? 21.
So he's going to raise.
4,000 more back to Ted now.
Now the question is, how much is Ted going to raise? They both have the same straight.
I'm all in.
All in to just over 111,000 now.
Wow, Antonio doesn't know what to do. He's got the straight. Ted might also have the same straight. But what if Ted has the 6-7? Antonio will be out of the tournament.
All in, right?
Antonio throws it away, and Ted Forrest wins the pot.
Not calling in that hand is a big insight into how Antonio plays. I don't think a lot of players would have thrown that hand away.
Ted Forrest takes a 3-1 chip lead. Is the curtain about to close on the magician? Welcome back to the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. 16 players today trying to advance to the round of 8. And we'll have round of 8 action next Saturday here on NBC starting at 3:30 Eastern right before the Preakness Stakes. Over to one of our 3 outer tables, John Hennigan and TJ Cloutier have been fighting for control.
TJ is all in here, but he's got a big advantage. He's got a pair of 10s against John's pair of 9s.